Welcome to the future of money. Come with us on this journey into the world of Bitcoin, blockchain and crypto projects. You're going to meet the trailblazers. These people have changed my life and they may very well do the same for you. All right, welcome back. Two fantastic people in the crypto space, Brendan, Lee and Daniel. Great to see you again.
Great to see you too, Sean.
Yeah, so Daniel, we first met in Toronto. I was trying to remember, was that last year or was that 2018 at the CoinGeek conference?
That was last year.
That was last year.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brendan. And I met you last
May
year.
2019.
Right. Yeah, and then we met in Seoul.
Yes.
Missed the London conference, which looked a little more glitzy than the previous two I had.
It was pretty damn fancy. Oh, I'm really sorry. I'm just going to let my dog out.
Okay, no problem. Daniel, the first thing you said to me today is Bitcoin's the only thing that can save the world at the moment. I think that's a fantastic way to maybe start the show. Could you elaborate on that for us, sir?
Okay, sure. Well, the Bitcoin white paper associates centralized trusted intermediaries with a certain percentage of fraud being accepted as normal. So that's kind of the problem with the world today, is that we rely on centralized trusted intermediaries. So I'm just going to quick share my screen here. Can you all see this?
Yep.
Okay, this is a picture of the problem that Bitcoin solves. And it's a problem that affects the world. And it is not something that anybody else has a solution for. And this is a picture of a hub and spokes network. And we, well, outside of Bitcoin, people rely on hub and spokes networks to store information that everybody needs and to track things like identity or to solve the double spending problem. But the problem with the hub and spokes network is that the hub is the only node with a global view of the network. And that enables it to abuse the spokes. And there's also a very, very big benefit to abusing the spokes, because it's very difficult for the spokes to regroup and find a new hub, because they're all dependent on the hub for the information that they need. So for example, if they're relying on it for identity, then if they were to regroup and form a new network, they would have to figure out all of their identities again. So what the hub can become corrupted either because the people who run it decide to be corrupted, or because there can be attackers who are going after the information in the center. So I put Twitter in the center here, but lots of things
Central banks
could also
be there, I assume.
Yeah, this could be Facebook, this could be the Federal Reserve, this could be lots of things.
Okay.
And because of the central hub's ability to be the only node that has a global view, it can turn the spokes into enemies of each other by telling them, since the spokes all depend on the hub for the global view, the hub can tell each of the spokes different things. And it can use that ability to turn them all into enemies of each other. So that's why they're all Agent Smith. Because remember, in the movie The Matrix, Morpheus says that the agents are software that can enter any hardware connected to the system. And that includes human brains, because they're all connected to the Matrix. Mm-hmm. So in the Matrix, normal people transform into Agent Smith when he invades their bodies, and they turn into Agent Smith. So Agent Smith is like the lies. He's like the deception that makes people act against their own interest. So Bitcoin replaces the hub and spokes network with what's called the small world network, and I'll have a quick picture of that. Here it is. This is the small world network, and in the small world network, there is no designated center. Rather, all of the nodes are competing to be as central as possible. And centrality means that there are many paths going through a node. So a node with high centrality has many paths that go through it. So everybody's trying to know everybody else in the small world network. And in the small world network, there are individuals rather than identical copies of Agent Smith, and they are all friends because they don't have this abuser that's standing in between all of them. So they're a much greater benefit to one another.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we have in Bitcoin that the rest of the world doesn't have. So I see the problem with the rest of the world is deception that people don't know how to escape from, that makes them all enemies of each other.
Well put.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, we've been in the space for quite a while, guys. Daniel, you're one of the more high-profile people that sort of has come across from the BTC crowd, so to speak. And no, that's probably not the best way to phrase it. But really, what I want to do next is for people that are quite new, and that'll include a lot of the audience watching this, BTC really, I think, has crossed over into people's minds as digital gold, the scarce digital asset. They get that. It really is about price appreciation for them. Could we spend a bit of time now and look at what the difference in these two, I don't know the best way to phrase this, versions of Bitcoin, BTC and BSV? Obviously, you guys are in the BSV camp. You would say that is the real Bitcoin.
Well,
how do we describe this to someone that is quite new? We're obviously seeing an influx of people at the moment, so there's going to be a new wave of confusion. Brendan, do you want to begin?
Take digital gold? Can I take digital gold and I'll let you explain Bitcoin?
Sure. Look, can I just quickly before you do that? Can I just kind of make a more general
screen share, Daniel?
What?
Do you want to come back to the regular screen so we can see?
You're still sharing it.
Brendan's pretty face. There we go. Right, Brendan, I'll let you have first crack at that, and then we'll go to Daniel on digital gold.
Just before Daniel goes into digital gold, I thought there's a really good kind of analogy to make that uses the images that he was just sharing, which is that if you look at crypto as an industry, and to be honest, I look at the whole thing and I see it as nothing as a giant Ponzi full of greater fools. Every crypto coin that is out there is another Agent Smith, and crypto media, crypto news media is that central hub network that is basically out there, and its sole purpose is to bring in the greater fools, expose them to Agent Smith, and to get them to throw all their money into the pot such that the Ponzi can continue to propagate. And it's a very apt kind of, I think, way of explaining how this industry is currently going at the moment, and people running around and saying, oh, digital gold and stuff. It really is a completely, I think, inaccurate representation of what the coin does. But I'm going to let Daniel handle digital gold.
Okay. Yeah. Well, first of all, I certainly second everything you said about the rest of crypto. And yeah, the hub and spokes problem not only affects the outside world, it affects all of crypto, because most of the people who got into Bitcoin didn't understand the point at all. and they don't recognize the problem that Bitcoin solves. So they don't realize that it's affecting them. And yeah, so the crypto news is they're all trying to be designated centers, and so are the exchanges, and they're all trying to control the narrative. So digital gold is something that was like a meme that people used to explain Bitcoin in 2 words a long time ago, but it is not an economic theory. It's something that was like a metaphor that people came up with a while back, but it has changed in BTC. It's changed into what passes for economics. So they're all telling each other that they have digital gold, when really what they have is nothing like gold. So gold was in the past a form of money, and gold is valuable for reasons other than being money. Now gold is not money, but gold is still valuable because there are other reasons it's valuable. But gold had very good properties as money, at least for the world of the past, before we needed instant communication with one another, because there wasn't somebody controlling the supply. There was something limiting the supply, and that was the difficulty of digging more of it out of the earth. But Bitcoin is not physical like gold, and BTC cannot be used as money because of small blocks. And whatever they tell you about the Lightning Network, that will never enable BTC to be used as money. BTC does not have the properties of gold because it's non-physical. So gold is special because because of physics, because there's only one kind of atom that can ever have the properties of gold. But BTC is not like that, because you can copy the code and you can start another network that works the same way. And if BTC were used as money, then it would be special and you couldn't copy it, because money is what's known as a game theoretic focal point, which means that it's special because all of the players have selected it as something special. So once everybody is using something as money, that makes it special, even if it's not intrinsically all that special. But that's not what they have in BTC, because it can't be used as money. So all that digital gold means now. So digital gold originally was like a metaphor that was intended to convey the idea that Bitcoin is a form of money that doesn't have centralized control. But now it's nothing more than a lie that suggests that BTC has properties similar to what gold has now. But really, they're nothing like each other.
Okay. So, Daniel, I think you may have actually coined the phrase Bitcoin maximalism, I believe. I remember having a chat with you on that.
No, that was Vitalik, but I wrote the first article on Bitcoin maximalism. It just wasn't called that. Vitalik came up with it to make fun of us. But yeah, to me, Bitcoin maximalism is just as logical because of the nature of money. So I don't think that Bitcoin, when I'm talking about Bitcoin, I mean BSV, of course. That's the one that can be used as money. And I think I think that money is money because of how people think about it. not because of its intrinsic properties. Whatever good we use as money, it's not because of what it is that makes it money. It's how we think about it.
Right.
And that's why there aren't going to be two monies, or if there are two monies, they're in a zero-sum competition with one another. In other words, one of them will win completely and the other will lose completely.
Right.
So
you think
to
we're going to
me-
end up with that one blockchain here in the end, so to speak?
Yeah. So to me, maximalism is just logical. It just follows from the nature of money, and I don't think Bitcoin has a future if it's not money, because I don't know why it would be valuable if it's not going to be money.
So on that note, guys, well, let's talk about how you see this all playing out. For me, we seem to be currently in a scenario where with the recent law change in the US, where these digital assets can now be custodied by banks, BTC seems to have a massive first mover advantage here. Obviously, it seems to have been accepted as a commodity, so to speak, by a lot of these institutions. Fidelity putting out a report saying that close to 50% of US institutions had a position in it, more in Europe, nudging 60%. Obviously, I would imagine there's going to be some rehypothecation of that asset, which I suppose there you could argue that it does have those gold-like commodity properties. Where is BSV in the evolution compared to BTC, and how do you have any knowledge of how institutions are viewing what's going on at BSV? Could you comment on that?
I think, if you don't mind, Daniel, I actually think the institutions and the guys who are doing the evaluations of these assets actually have no idea. They've looked at some charts, they've looked at the price, and they go, oh yeah, it's a good idea and we need to buy it because it's scarce. But they're not actually understanding what its purpose is and what it's useful for. And as a result, they're making very bad decisions. I mean, to me, BTC is like, have you ever seen those photos of those buses that you see around, like in places like India and Pakistan, where they've just got like luggage piled up, kind of 10 stories high, and this little engine kind of chugging along, dragging this thing up a mountain. And you've got all these people sitting on top of that bus telling everyone, yeah, jump on the bus. We can all fit. It's all going to be great. And one day the whole thing is going to grind to a catastrophic halt. Small blocks are just not useful. You cannot do anything with 3 transactions a second globally. And I mean, I don't know how many times or different ways you really have to say that to make it sink in. But, whereas BSV, really, this is like the bullet train. This is like we can fit as many people as we need, and we just keep growing the system until everybody is inside, and everyone's kind of look at the guys riding this freaking wagon up the mountain and think, what were they even thinking? It's kind of, to me, it's crazy. If you look at Bitcoin, a lot of people try to say, well, what is the fundamental value of Bitcoin? And I spent a fair bit of time thinking about it. And the closest I came up with was, so the only thing that where it happens that actually consumes the Bitcoin itself is the act of spending it. And it's in that act of spending it that some of that Bitcoin gets shaved away and given to the network. And so the value to me of a Bitcoin is, if you have a whole Bitcoin, so 100 million Satoshis, how many times can you actually transfer that money until it's all gone? And so if you're in BTC land where you're paying, sometimes say 50,000 Satoshis to do one single transaction, well, you can really only transfer that, what is that, like 2,000 times before you've consumed your entire $10,000 worth of BTC. So if you live in a land where you think 2,000 transactions is good value for $10,000, sure, go and buy BTC. But I live in the real world where that is completely unviable for 99% of commerce purposes. That's 10 times worse than using a credit card today for a merchant. and it's 10,000 times worse than BSV. So if you have a coin where you can take that coin and say spend it 1,000,000 times or 100 million times for its full value, that really is showing that in terms of the actual value that you get when you hold that asset is much higher. You're getting much more utility. You can actually do many more things. And I mean, we can demonstrate today with the fact that we can create now transactions up to 100 megabytes. So you can embed complete videos, high definition photos, legal contracts, all these kinds of things right onto the ledger inside a transaction. So what you actually have is a form of money where you can take that money, and if you know how to use it properly, if you are doing things inside of payment channels and things like that, you're actually taking the entire act of providing a service and you're embedding it right inside the banknote. And so the entire service takes place inside the banknote itself. And at the end, the contract is closed and the banknote changes hands. And so you no longer even need to integrate with a payment layer because the payment layer is right there. And it's actually a central core part of your service because you build it on Bitcoin. When you build it on Bitcoin, all of the value of Bitcoin comes straight into that service. And so you can do things much faster, much cheaper, and much more quickly by virtue of the fact that it's all happening right there within the money.
Yeah. So if we could just back up and really try and sort of simplify this for people new to the space.
Yep.
We're sort of 3 years now since the user activated soft fork, and that's probably the worst thing for me to say after simplifying it. But effectively, how do we explain that to people?
I can explain it.
Okay.
I have
in really basic terms, Brendan.
So user-activated soft fork is actually a total misnomer for what happened because there was nothing user-activated about it. What happened is that the miners on the BTC network agreed that everybody in BTC was an idiot and that if they didn't let them keep their stupid small blocks, that the value of the network would crumble and all of the hash rate that they'd just spent hundreds of $1 million buying would probably lose money very quickly. So they actually locked them into that stupid idea of 1 megabyte blocks. And that's what happened. Users had nothing to do with the fact that they got stuck on 1 megabyte and got SegWit. Miners simply let them have that because they were like, all right, you're the idiots who keep buying this thing and paying us. So we're going to let you do that. That's what happened. That was the user-activated soft fork, was miners locking everybody into stupid.
Well, the user-activated soft fork was a huge deception that where people believed that they were doing something when they were really doing nothing. And I think that I guess I disagree with Brendan. I mean, effectively, what he said is correct, but I don't agree that well, perhaps this isn't what he was actually saying, but I don't believe that the miners had a plan. Like what he said.
No, I don't think they did.
I don't
either.
think that was their plan. I think that the miners
they just gave people what they wanted.
Yeah, I think they were fooled too. So it was I see the user activated soft fork as ultimately a power play by the open source developers. They wanted to have control over the network.
Okay. Daniel, on that note, I mean, obviously in their roadmap they've got things like Taproot on the horizon. How do you think that those implementations will? Do you think they'll go off without a hitch? I mean, that's quite a large amount of coordination, not dissimilar to what we saw 3 years ago. Any comments on that particular topic within BTC, or you don't really care about what's happening there these days?
I don't even know
what that is. Yeah.
All right. Well, here's my answer.
I mean, it's Well, may I make a comment on why we wouldn't know that? It's like the purpose or the benefit of money is the other people.
Yeah.
So if you're in BSV, you need to pay attention to the other BSVers. And if you're in BTC, you need to pay attention to the other BTCers.
Right. I'm trying to cover everything, and believe me, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. So
Throwing a bit of DeFi, and life's confusing at the moment.
So Brendan and I are both here trying to make BSV succeed.
Yep.
So it doesn't really, it's not really worth our while to try to understand what's going in.
Let me rephrase what I was trying to do there. I'm just trying to paint a picture for people new to the space, because obviously the evolution of Bitcoin and what has happened, a lot of that came about because of the user activated software. Where for me, it's a scenario now where the BTC crowd, there is adoption as digital gold. They have that narrative has been accepted by a lot of these big hedge funds are in there. They're talking gold, silver.
They're the greatest fools in the network. Is the guys like pouring?
But then,
hundreds of millions of
ask
dollars.
really, really silly questions here, and let's try and explain this to people. So, if BSV also has those same properties that BTC has, it's got that limited supply, a regular supply schedule, also, which is possibly even more important. So you could argue, okay, it's got that's if you're going to play a digital gold narrative, it's got the exact same thing. But obviously the blocks aren't capped. Now, this is what I'm trying to put in very basic terms for people, whether it's a retail investor or even an institution. So why wouldn't a hedge fund or an institution be acquiring BSV if they wanted to play that digital gold narrative and rehypothecate it now, which is clearly what's going to happen? You guys talk more in terms of it's an actual network, which it is. But that's what I'm trying to explain to people here in very basic terms. What is that difference between the two, and why doesn't BSV sort of have that also that narrative of that scarce digital asset that you can bank and then obviously rehypothecate, which is what's about to happen on BTC?
I think we're far more focused on what you can actually do with it. So
Correct.
the entire narrative of digital gold is you buy it and then you don't do anything with it. You simply sit on it.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, that's fine. And no one's against that. But there's also the complete other end of that spectrum, which is how much can you do with the least amount of Bitcoin? And if you have a network where, well, if you've got less than $50 of Bitcoin, you can't even actually do one single transaction. What good is it? It's useless. And so if you think it's going to somehow have value in the future, but it's useless, I would say that you probably need to reevaluate your assumptions and really take a look at what it is that you're buying. Because it's potentially the value that it was ascribed when you paid for it is not going to hold as we move forward.
Can I comment on that now? Yeah. So what I'm going to say doesn't really disagree with what Brendan said earlier. I'm just going to explain it in a slightly different way.
Yep.
But I think of money as a way for people to benefit each other. And so I think the nature of an investment in money is the other entrepreneurs. And what that means is the other people who are selling or who are creating goods and services to be sold for that money. So what Brendan said earlier is it's the number of times you can transact.
Yep.
So that's basically the same as what he said. The only difference that I would like to what I would like to emphasize is that the amount of goods available changes over time. So I think that you should want to increase your supply of cash if you anticipate more goods being available in the future. So and the transaction fees prevent people from wanting to benefit each other. Because why would you create goods and services to be sold for Bitcoin if there are these prohibitively high fees? And if we had somebody from BTC on here, he would say, oh, the fees aren't really that high. But if people actually tried to sell goods and services to each other, then the fees would be high.
I think a lot of the BTC crowd would actually say they don't really care about the fees because it is that commodity. It's turned into this commodity, that digital gold that you're not really using as money.
There's just a halo around people who have money, who are rich, and so someone who has lots of BTC, and he says it's digital gold, people just accept that. But you shouldn't do that. You need to think about how things really work. And, one of these days that BTC won't be worth anything anymore and that Halo is going to go away. People are going to all say, why did we ever think there was such a thing as digital gold in the first place?
Okay. So guys, let's go really macro here and talk about what is happening. Obviously, we've got a Mickey Mouse equity market now that's reaching new all-time highs, which is just comical. How are you guys approaching this financial calamity that we've got on our hands from a personal point of view? Can you maybe talk a little bit about how you're handling your investments, wealth preservation, and secondly, how do we see the Bitcoin ecosystem evolving, given what we're seeing in the regular economy, so to speak, at the moment? Daniel, do you want to kick off first on that one?
Okay, well, I don't want to talk about what I'm actually doing too much, but I'll say that gold is for when civilization is being destroyed, and Bitcoin is good for preserving civilization. So, what I'm aiming for with Bitcoin is we can fix civilization quick enough before it gets destroyed too much. But when and the reason for this difference is that Bitcoin requires a network to work, requires a computer network, and there's this industry that maintains the Bitcoin system, that provides Bitcoin as a service, and that's the miners. So they need that network to keep working, and they're going to do whatever it takes to keep it working. When the Bitcoin network is when everybody is a part of it, then that need to keep it running is going to be very powerful, and it'll prevent civilization from falling apart the way it is now. But right now it's small, but I just hope we can grow it fast enough that things don't get too bad before the effect of Bitcoin kicks in for the whole world.
Yeah. Well said. Brendan Lee.
Just to echo what Daniel said regarding gold, that's absolutely the fallback when everything is falling apart. But Bitcoin is going to allow us to really capitalize on all of the development that has happened in the internet, in computer systems over the last 40, 50 years, and enable that they call it the fourth industrial revolution. I actually believe that this is one of the keystone technologies that's going to go into enabling that. And it is through that property of actually being able to embed good or services, more than goods, but definitely, services, interactions, automated tasks inside a piece of money, and actually have that process something of use, and for a very low cost. And so I don't really want to talk about my position as such, but what I will say is that so for almost 3 years now, I have earned over 95% of my income in 100% in Bitcoin. And when that was Bitcoin Cash, I was earning Bitcoin Cash. And now I earn Bitcoin SV. All my paychecks are in BSV. And when people hear what I do, the first thing they usually ask is, so, what should I buy? And if I don't have time to sit them down and do the talk, my answer is, look, don't touch crypto. Like it's a mess. If you're not able to earn it, or you're not able to use it, or you're not able to take it and do something with it, it is not worth your time at this stage to buy in, because if you go out and do your own research, it's likely there are so many agent smiths in that crypto marketplace that you are going to get fed the wrong information. They're waiting for people like you to become the next fool. So don't touch it. And that's my opinion as an expert, is if you don't know what you're buying, if you don't understand at a fundamental level how this is going to help you, don't touch it. Warren Buffett is right. It is rat poison.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I can say from experience that I've had friends that I told BSV is the only good one, and then they end up getting into Bitcoin Cash or something, and then I'm like, well, you'll just lose all of your money. But then they won't listen to me enough to understand why. And it's kind of like Bitcoin is multidisciplinary, so you need to know a lot of different subjects to kind of understand how these coins are competing with one another. So this is like a complex, multi-layered game, and you need to know all of it in order to know what will happen accurately. And also, there's a good chance that BSV will go down a lot before it goes up.
Yeah.
So telling somebody to buy into it if they don't know a lot, that's not
It's
such a
just
good
too
thing.
dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's also a scenario at the moment. What I'm seeing is this sort of new group of people coming into the space are extremely excited about what's happening on Ethereum, specifically in DeFi. Could you comment on what BSV is sort of offering and that world, what projects are on the ecosystem at the moment, and maybe just comment generally on the whole DeFi phenomenon at the moment? But I think I already know what your answer is going to be.
Brandon, do you know what DeFi is?
It stands for decentralized finance. The way I've explained it, Sean, is that it's a great way for people who don't understand blockchains to sell tokens that have no value to people who don't understand finance. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into
Ethereum is the scam that keeps on scamming. So it was the first, or one of the earliest ICOs, and not only are ICOs illegal, but they don't make any sense, because a token, like they're not a stock. Okay, so a token that is used for a network is not necessarily something that is going to go up if the if the functionality of the network improves. But that is what happens with the stock because of dividends. So what they do with these ICOs is they say, there's this new coin and it's the only thing that can be used to buy X service that's performed by this crypto coin network. But and people are fooled into believing that they're investing in the service.
Don't forget to add that the service doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
If you buy the coin in 9 months' time, when we've built the platform, you can use the service.
Oh yeah, that's what they did on Ethereum. I said Ethereum was going to be vaporware when that was all happening. So that I was shocked that they actually built something because it was so obviously a scam that I wasn't really imagining that these people would stick around to build it. What I thought is that they would all have to disappear, but that's not what happened. So Ethereum has mainly been used to just do more ICOs on top of it. And each of these different coins is in competition with all the rest. So Ethereum is a house divided against itself. BSV can do everything. You can do any kind of smart contract thing on BSV, and it scales much better.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, look. Yeah, Daniel. I mean, I'm actually tokenizing this media brand. I mean, it's obviously an STO. It's not an ICO by any stretch of the imagination. It's just it's the equity in the business. We're able to issue millions of tokens and encourage people to support the media and reward. For example, you guys coming on the show, I can flick you some tokens, etc. And this is all made possible by using blockchain. And you're going to hate to hear this, but it's the back end is Ethereum. So I'm seeing a real world use case, and I've been tracking this for a while now. What I'm also seeing is these gas fees going through the roof at the moment, and that there's a multitude of projects coming onto Ethereum, but whether this thing is going to scale or not is the $1 trillion question.
Well,
I think the answer
is worth $1 trillion.
So
I think I could give you
now,
the answer.
Hang on,
I'd like to win that $1 trillion right now.
Yeah, where's my $1 trillion for telling you that it won't work?
Okay. So on that note, though, now listen, when the company I'm using, this option didn't exist on Bitcoin at the time at all. So obviously they've utilized the Ethereum blockchain. That may change. What is happening? What are the great things happening on BSV at the moment that the audience should be aware of? And lastly, I'd love you guys to tell us about the projects that you're both working on. So, Brendan, do you want to start off by telling us some of the amazing things that you're seeing on BSV that people should be aware of and can use right now? And then we'll get into what you're specifically doing. So round it all out.
Sure. So, I mean, I guess I'm so busy with work at the moment. I'm really haven't been paying all that much attention. But the one project that I've been using a lot is called Palping, and it's basically like another social media network. But the way it's been done is very interesting. So when you sign in, you do it by actually signing a Bitcoin transaction, and then each time you put some some kind of post or whatever onto the platform, that post is again stored inside a Bitcoin transaction, and to which you apply your signature. But the transaction itself is never actually written onto the Bitcoin ledger. It sits there as an unfunded transaction, and people can then add child transactions onto that, so they can create like a chain of interactions, and you can pass tips to each other. So those are real and happen on the ledger, and so it's people passing, like, oh, I liked what you said there, or here's 2 cents, whatever. And there's a feature coming very soon, I believe, which will allow you to then say, actually, I want to make that permanent. And you'll be able to just push a button or swipe a little thing,
Yep.
and it will write that whole post onto the ledger. And I think it's a very clean implementation of what a social media experience can be. And look, it's not necessarily the greatest. You know, we also have Twitch, which I think is great as well. And there are other ones coming soon. So we have Memento, which is more of like a photo sharing, like Instagram style thing, which is coming out pretty shortly. And
question on Twitch. I mean, is this how can I phrase this? I went to boost a post on Twitter the other day, and for the first time actually found out that my account has been censored. Would be the word to use, I guess.
Ooh.
Yeah. Does that happen on Twitch? I mean, I know the platform, you pay to post something. If somebody likes that, they pay for liking you, or if they want to slag you off.
I mean, you can.
Is it censorship resistant? I guess is what I'm asking.
Why were you? Why was your account deleted?
Censorship
wasn't deleted. It just said you were ineligible to promote or place an ad because of some indiscretion. It didn't actually list it, and then obviously I've contacted them and said, "Hey, what's this about?" But it's just a generic answer you get back. So I don't know whether or not I can.
This is on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I'm getting not to go off topic, but I am actually getting more and more concerned about what's happening in social media. Even the channel we're going to be posting this on YouTube, they seem to be deleting crypto accounts left, right, and center at the moment. Bit of a worry.
Okay, well, you should try Streamanity.
I have used it, Daniel. I did. I was actually one of the early adopters of it, and I'll certainly post this video there.
Well, it's improved a lot since then. It recently got under new management. But the thing about it now is there aren't very many users, but you can make a lot more money than you can on YouTube, because you can set your video to cost 10 cents or whatever, and you earn a lot of that yourself. So it's not, you don't need 1,000 subscribers to get ad revenue.
Right.
You can have you can have much fewer views than on YouTube to get the same amount of money that you get from something on YouTube.
Okay. I mean, obviously, my experience with Streamanity and Twitch, is very much the BSV community, correct?
Well, yeah, but eventually that's going to be everybody in the world. But no, I'll
do my bit to help that happen, and I it was, I think some of the BSV people in social media can be pretty hardcore. So while I did okay on generating some revenue on the BSV platforms, there was the backhand slap the second I covered anything else, which actually was detrimental to the media, because I had a lot of guys sort of plowing in, disliking things, downvoting, and so it's like, all right, great, I've made $20 here on some videos, but I'm getting slammed over here for the second I would cover a different topic. It's
well, yeah, I mean, people on Streamanity aren't going to be interested in the other cryptos.
No.
So you might have to change.
I didn't so much
focus of your show, but
yeah, correct. No, I was encouraging other guys in my team who were, they're musicians. They have a band, so they were posting music videos and so forth. But really, the interest seemed to lie around maybe a video like this. Obviously, the challenge for all these multitude of new blockchain social media platforms is to obviously go outside of their sort of core communities and bring in other general interest content. I guess, as you say, the whole world needs to be using it.
Well, I mean, I think that will happen because people in BSV are better at benefiting each other. So to me, the way we get more people in is focusing on each other, and we create an economy that other people will want to join.
Yep, correct.
So I don't think outreach is what really matters. I mean, eventually we'll want to do that. But right now, BSV really is more for people who are visionaries and who can see where it's going to be, in a few years from now.
Okay. Tell us about your project. You're building something at the moment. Is that correct?
Yes. So I am chief scientist at Matterpool, which is a Bitcoin service provider. And we've got a blockchain service, and we're a mining pool, and then we also do some other things. So we've got Bitcoin Files, which is an on-chain replacement for Dropbox, or at least it will be soon. The next feature that we're going to implement is encrypted files. Right now, we only have public files, so it's not quite like what you can do with Dropbox yet. But when we do encrypted files, then we're going to be a competitor of Dropbox. And then the project that I designed is called Boost, and it's a way of selling proof of work to anybody who wants to buy it. So I designed a Bitcoin script that is redeemed with proof of work, and anybody can create a bounty, and then a miner can redeem the bounty, and the proof of work will be attached to whatever message the user wants. And we're going to use that to implement a secure upvote system. So the reason, well, the proximate cause that for me to want to make this was because I knew that upvotes on Reddit are actually meaningless. And that's the reason that Reddit was taken over by the Bitcoin Core propaganda.
I have a lifetime ban.
Yeah. But when an upvote is a proof of work message, then the handicap principle applies to information that is upvoted. And that means that the optimal strategy is to tell people information that's actually good for them. And it's no longer a successful, or I should say, it's no longer an optimal strategy to deceive other people.
Okay. Interesting. I'll obviously put some links below for everything you've mentioned there. Brendan, did you want to tell us about your project as well? We're having a chat off camera.
Yeah, sure. ELAS is, I guess, a way of enabling people to compartmentalize the Bitcoin ledger and actually create kind of a self-contained zone within which their own data and tokens can be managed. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a closed garden or anything like that. What it enables us is to give people a very simple and deterministic way to validate that a token or a piece of information that they're receiving was generated as part of that ledger within the global Bitcoin ledger, and to do that very easily and cheaply, and to remove the overhead that typically comes with like such a token. And so, we can use this to do shares, logistics. We can actually issue fiat currency on the Bitcoin ledger. So basically the way that we do it is we take a quantity of Bitcoin. So say we want to issue some country's dollar supply on the Bitcoin ledger. We would take a whole Bitcoin, 100 million Satoshis, and we would spend that into a transaction that breaks those 100 million Satoshis into 100 million outputs of 1 Satoshi each. And each of those outputs would be ascribed a serial number, a value in that fiat currency. We can actually link back to artwork that we have placed on the ledger so that a note can be presented in a wallet with an official picture that represents that banknote. All of the kinds of things that we have with cash currency today, and we can now bring that forward into Bitcoin. And so, like I was saying before, where you can have, a piece of money where you're actually delivering a good or service actually within that piece of money, well, now that piece of money can be literally a 1 cent coin that is issued by the treasury of a given current country. We can go back to that, the minting action. We can see that it was signed by all of the correct people and know that that's official currency. So we have a few other things that we're working on as well that will enable us to make really fast and simple legal contracts. So think like instant insurance for something that's only going to take 5 minutes, but you want insurance for that. Well, we can now make an insurance policy that costs 1 cent and is built on a standard predefined set of contract clauses that exists on the ledger. So it's got some potential, but it's very early days as yet. So we're still working on our core technologies, but we do have a working wallet. We have a working sub ledger on the Bitcoin ledger where we can have some cash notes and coins that we spend around to each other. So, yeah.
Okay. Excellent. So we always like to round the show out with top 5 coins to 5 billion. So do you want to go first, Brendan?
Top 5 coins to 5 billion. 10-ounce gold coin.
Yeah.
Would be the first. BSV second. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really.
Okay. BSV 6th at the moment. What's going on? When's it going to be number 1?
Sometime, one day. It's not really. Yeah.
Yeah. If you never want to look bad, never make predictions that involve timing.
True. So, how do we close this out, guys? Do you think we've done a job of explaining what BSV is to those that are new to the space? And I know there's certainly quite a few in my crowd.
I think for me, BSV is the coin that you don't have to buy. BSV is the coin that one day you will go and do something and somebody will value that thing that you did enough to simply give it to you. And they will give it to you in small quantities, but that won't matter because as you kind of move into that economy, there are going to be more people who want to give it to you and they'll be giving it to you in these tiny little quantities. But so many people can give you tiny quantities that it actually makes a lot.
Somebody in Peru, I don't know who he is or she is, but they send me like two cents every
they
day.
send it to me every day. Yeah, Peru crypto, and it's always, if you go in, there's always a nice little message like,
who is that?
Be happy, look up at the sky.
Who is that?
I have no idea, but it's great. I love it. Every day I'm like, I got my little note for the day.
Yeah, great person, whoever that is. So, look, okay, you're right. I mean, I was pretty active in creating some media and posting it in the community. I'll obviously ramp that back up again a wee bit, starting with this video. So, and obviously I can share that with you guys, I believe, on Streamanity. Is that right?
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Yep. Okay.
Well, I have a closing statement as well. Well, so for somebody who's I'm really worried about where the world is headed right now, and I think it's moving really quickly. in a very dangerous direction. That well, I'm just very worried. So if the viewer is somebody who thinks that he's living in a cyberpunk Orwellian dystopia, please come and join us in BSV. And don't just take my word for it, figure it out, because we've got the solution. And there's a long way to go before we can give this solution to the world. So please come in and help us create it.
Very well said, and I think that's the perfect way to finish today, guys. I've enjoyed speaking with you both again. Thank you very much for your time.
Likewise. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, let's do it again in the near future, and we'll get some people from other projects on, and we'll get some fur flying next time.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Daniel, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. Some great insights, and Brendan, yeah, thanks for coming along, Cobber.
No worries, mate.
No worries, mate. All right, guys, thanks very much for your time. We'll be in touch. Cheers, and
Yeah, thank you.
links
See you
below
around.
to the projects that the guys are working on. So check it out down below, and thank you to the audience. I hope we taught you a bit more about BSV today. See you next time. Thanks, guys.